Hey, night owls, pull the blankets up and keep one earbud in, because tonight we're climbing down into the rank, rain-soaked trenches of the medieval plague pit. Don't forget to hit the like button if grim history is your lullaby, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from and what totally unspooky snack you're munching. Seriously, I read those while editing at 2 a.m. and it keeps the existential dread company. Now dim the lights, cue the distant thunder on your smart speaker, and take a long breath through the nose. Preferably not too deep, because we're about to smell things no scented candle can conquer. You know the image. The Black Death rolls into town like a storm cloud stuffed with knives. Bells toll, markets empty, windows shutter. But the real horror show isn't just the coughing or the buboes or the priests pacing with incense. It's what happens after the final rattle, the moment someone has to pick up the bodies no one will claim. And that someone is the plague gravedigger, the sleepless, half-starved, half-terrified shovel jockey who keeps the dead from piling up in the streets. Medieval chroniclers don't give these folks heroic Latin epithets. They barely mention them at all. Yet without them, the nightmare gets worse. Bodies rot in doorways, dogs go feral, disease blooms a second time. So tonight we're slipping on a ragged cloak, grabbing a splintery shovel, and clocking in for the worst night shift in history. No one wakes up and says, "I dream of digging pits full of plague victims." Like medieval assassins, gravediggers land here when the world slapped every other option away. Maybe you were a failed monk who drank too much communion wine. Maybe you were a day laborer who sprained an ankle and fell behind on rent. Or maybe you're just the last able-bodied soul on the block who hasn't keeled over yet. So the alderman grabs your collar and says, "Congratulations, your municipal sanitation, hazard pay included." Hazard pay, by the way, might be a stale loaf, a half penny, and permission to sleep in the abandoned tannery where the roof leaks, but at least it's free of rats, most of the time. Training? None. Orientation? A guy with missing teeth points toward the outskirts and mutters, "Dig deep or they come back up." Tools? Whatever you can scrounge. A bent shovel, a rusty mattock, maybe a pry bar from a deserted workshop. PPE? Forget it. The closest thing you get to personal protective equipment is a strip of linen soaked in vinegar tied over your mouth, which smells like pickled doom and does nothing to stop airborne bacteria. But hey, it's trendy. Your first lesson arrives with sunrise. Plague pits have to be deep. Authorities decree 6 feet, sometimes 10, hoping distance equals safety. You learn quickly that soil behaves like a vindictive pudding. One wrong footstep and the wall slumps, half burying you in the very hole you're making for someone else. Clay sucks the shovel from your grip. Sand collapses like powdered sugar. If you're really unlucky, groundwater seeps in, turning the trench into a gravy of decay. Now you're shin deep in a soup of mud, blood, and who knows what, trying not to imagine what happens if you slip. But the bodies won't wait. They arrive on carts pulled by exhausted draft horses and men with cloths over their faces. Sometimes they're wrapped in sheets. Sometimes they're stacked like firewood, limbs tangled, mouths open as if still arguing about unpaid debts. In winter, they freeze, rigid and polite. In summer, they bloat, buzzing with flies that land on your eyelids the second you blink. The smell is a creature of its own, sweet one moment, metallic the next, always crawling inside your sinuses until even bread tastes like rot. You tell yourself you'll get used to it. You never do. Night is worse. Torches sputter. Shadows warp. You think you see movement in the pit. Just a trick of the flame, you insist. Though rumor says the plague sometimes leaves its victims in a stupor, bodies tossed alive atop the dead. You throw soil faster, trying to muffle any possible sound, because you can't bear to know if someone down there was still breathing. Superstition hangs thicker than smoke. Neighbors watch from windows, crossing themselves, convinced you traffic with demons. After all, you handle corpses. You must be cursed. Children chant rhymes behind your back. Dogs growl when you pass. Inns refuse you ale, lest death climb out of your cup. So you live on crusts, drink well water, and talk only to fellow diggers, who vanish weakly as the disease claims them too. A grim lottery, who's next to cough, to fever, to join the very trench they dug. Let's talk payment again. Coins come stained and sticky, dropped into a wooden bowl so the paymaster never touches your hand. Sometimes payment comes late, or not at all, the city treasury emptied by crisis. You might scavenge from the dead, a copper brooch, a silver ring someone forgot to snatch before the final cart ride. Morally murky? Absolutely. but freezing nights and hollow stomachs erode morality quicker than lime dust eats fabric. You promise to pawn the ring for candles to burn at church for the departed souls. Maybe you do. Maybe you buy soup instead. Either way, the dead don't complain. A regular workday, sunset to sunrise, moves in ugly rhythm. Shovel down, breath out, lift, toss, hear cartwheels, shovel down again. Your muscles scream, but stopping means smelling, thinking, feeling. So you don't. You aim for numbness. Hands blister, then callous. The wooden handle darkens with sweat, blood, and pitch oil. In the silence between carts, you catch church bells tolling another death or distant wails of a family who just lost everything. Sometimes a priest trudges over, mutters Latin, sprinkles holy water that freezes on contact in winter. You wish he'd sprinkle ale instead. Lighting becomes a problem. Torches eat oxygen, smoke blinds, candles drown in wind. Many diggers fashion iron cages for rushlights, set them on stumps around the pit, creating a flickering perimeter that looks like a molten crown. Inside that crown, you're king of nothing, ruler of worms, sovereign of stench. You imagine giving a speech. Loyal subjects of decay, I hereby declare tomorrow corpse-free. Let's all take a holiday. The worms cheer silently. The bodies do not oblige. You see things you can't unsee. A mother cradling an infant, both bound in the same sheet. A merchant still wearing fur, pockets stuffed with worthless IOUs. A knight whose chainmail couldn't deflect bacteria. Each face whispers a cautionary tale. Wealth won't save you. Bravery won't save you. Prayers might not save you either. All that's left is dirt. And you, the ferryman without a river, pushing them into oblivion. And the plague changes you. At first, you flinch when lice crawl from a corpse onto your sleeve. A month in, you flick them away like ash. You stop dreaming of taverns, start dreaming of empty fields where no one ever dies. Your sense of time warps. Was it Tuesday or August? Who cares? There's always another cart. Yet a sliver of humanity clings. You whisper apologies as you tip bodies in, straighten limbs when you can, cross a pair of hands. No one's watching, but you do it anyway, because it's the last kindness they'll receive. Let's not forget the contagion. You sleep in the tannery loft, cough once, and terror spikes. Is it the dust or the Black Death tapping your lungs? Some diggers drink vinegar believing it purifies blood. Others chew sage leaves. One fellow swears by leeches behind the ears. Drains the bad humors, he says. Mostly it's luck. You watch men twice your size collapse mid-swing, blood trickling from their noses. 2 days later, their body joins the pile, and you dig a little deeper. Cursing irony, authorities try everything to speed the grim process. In some cities, they burn the dead, fewer pits, less digging, but wind whips ash across rooftops, and neighbors swear they taste Aunt Marjorie in the soot. Elsewhere, they order mass graves outside town walls, then forget to mark them. Years later, farmers turn up bones like potatoes, and legends grow of restless spirits. You wonder if those spirits remember you, the shovel ghost who tucked them away. Speaking of spirits, on quiet nights, odd lights hover over fresh pits. Marsh gas, scholars will say centuries later. But in 1348, you squint through frost and think, soul fire. You pause, breath steaming, and for a heartbeat, feel something like reverence. Maybe the dead aren't gone, just waiting. You mutter a prayer you half remember, then swing again because prayers don't finish a quota. The living keep their distance, yet they need you. City councils issue passes so you can cross checkpoints at night. That pass is gold. One glance and guards step aside, noses in sleeves. Irony again, the pariah becomes VIP. But the pass doesn't stop stones from kids who hurl insults. Body rat, death lover. You take it. Words can't bruise like a falling corpse dislocating your shoulder. Happened last week. Still aches. Then there's winter, the season that inspired tonight's insomnia. Frost hardens soil like iron. Your shovel clangs, sparks. Every foot of progress takes 10 minutes and a breath you can't spare. Yet bodies freeze too, piling up slower, smelling less. Small mercies. But ice slicks everything. One slip, you tumble in, and colleagues scramble to pull you out before the cargo lands on top. After that, you tie a rope around your waist, looped to a stump. Safety regulation, 14th century style. Finally, dawn skulks over the horizon, pale as a corpse. You tamp the last mound, stamp a crude cross in the soil with your boot heel. Somewhere behind you, a rooster crows obliviously. Your shift ends, but sleep won't come. Nightmares are redundant when reality outshocks them. You wash hands in icy water, watch crimson swirl down the gutter, wonder if the stain ever fades. Spoiler, it doesn't. And yet, amid the horror, camaraderie forms. A joke shared over moldy cheese, a song hummed while sharpening shovels. Gallows humor, that's the linchpin. You nickname the deepest pit the king's cellar. You rate corpse carts like tavern meals, 5 bodies, 2 dogs, 1 goat, decent portion. Laughter echoes off gravestones, and for a moment, the plague loses. Not much, but enough. Historians seldom record your names. Parish registers lump you as servants of the dead. But centuries later, archaeologists unearth pits and note neat layering, bodies arranged head to toe to maximize space. They marvel at the efficiency, the grim dignity. That's your signature invisible ink, proof someone cared enough to stack sorrow orderly. So as you settle into bed tonight, consider the anonymous digger whose blistered hands kept contagion from your ancestors' door. And if you feel a sudden chill, maybe it's gratitude wafting down the centuries, or perhaps just a draft because you forgot to close the window. Either way, take a moment to breathe in, not too deeply, and thank the shovel bearers who labored so the living could breathe easier. The first thing you learn on the wagon is that death has a schedule, but no sense of timing. Some nights the streets are deserted, the bell tower silent, and you almost convince yourself the worst has passed. Then a door slams open, and a widow flags down the cart, weeping into torn sleeves, begging you to take him before dawn. Him is her husband, still warm, already spotted, and the night shifts from lullaby to thunderclap in one heartbeat. The other diggers mutter small mercies. A fresh corpse is lighter, joints flexible, easier to arrange in the pit. Hard to remember that blessing when the man's wedding ring scrapes your knuckles and his eyes stay half open, catching torchlight like wet glass. Transport is half the battle. Cities try everything. Hand barrows pushed by sweating apprentices, mule-drawn sledges lined with straw, even repurposed merchant barges when canals thread through town. Each has drawbacks. Barrows tip, mules spook, barges leak. Your favorite? The covered cart with side slats for airflow. Think of it as the medieval hearse's grimy prototype. The cover keeps prying eyes away, but it also traps heat. By summer, the wagon becomes a rolling oven of decay. Flies swarm the canvas seams like spilled pepper. You tie a lavender sprig under your nose, but it only turns the stink floral. Still, you count yourself lucky. Some villages can't afford carts at all. Bodies are dragged on doors ripped from hinges, leaving snail trails of blood in the dust. Every road tells a story in the grooves its wheels carve. The high street bears deep ruts from merchant wagons now gone silent. Narrow alleys show smeared footprints where grieving sons lugged fathers toward the makeshift infirmary. You learn to steer around puddles with oily sheens, fluids leaked from previous trips. No one complains. They're too busy praying you don't slow down outside their threshold next. You and the driver trade rumors to stay sane. Did you hear about the barrel maker who locked himself inside a cask for a week and came out safe? Or the barber surgeon who claims shaving off all body hair wards off infection? Ridiculous, until you notice half the constabulary sporting bald scalps and shiny chins. The driver laughs through broken teeth. Humor is currency here. Spend it freely, because no one's saving for retirement. Arriving at the pit, you face the second shift, organization. Medieval municipal councils issue directives, stack head to toe, sprinkle quicklime, record numbers on wax tablets. On paper, order. In practice, chaos. Wax tablets melt under lantern heat, quicklime runs out by midsummer, and head to toe becomes wherever there's room. That's when the tally sheets go creative. One digger scratches marks on the handle of his shovel, nick for each body, notch for each dog, cross for each child. Another uses pebbles dropped into a pouch, different sizes for genders. Accuracy, maybe. Grim poetry, definitely. You think paperwork is tedious today? Try scribbling in the dark with numb fingers while rats the size of loaf cats scuttle over your boots. And those rats, oh, they're the unofficial night supervisors. Bold, fearless, fat on tragedy. Shake a sack at them and they scatter, but never far. Their eyes glow amber in torchlight, tiny embers waiting for embers of their own. Some diggers swear the rodents recognize faces, follow favorite workers home like plague-soaked kittens. A rumor or two of bites turning septic spreads until everyone tucks trouser cuffs into socks and prays tight wool is armor enough. The church tries to impose ritual amid the disorder. A bell ringer stands at the pit's edge, intoning a single low note for each body tossed in. His arms tremble by the 100th clang. He'll be hoarse by dawn, but he believes the souls need escort. You won't argue. Some comfort comes in repetition. Shovel scrape, bell toll, dirt thump, hush. In that steady rhythm, you almost forget the horror below. Almost. Break time doesn't exist, but exhaustion forces micro rests. You lean on the shovel handle, watching steam curl off the fresh mound like reluctant ghosts. Someone passes a shared flask, herbal wine laced with wormwood, bites the tongue, fogs the brain. The first sip tastes like regret, the second like numbness, the third you barely feel. You wipe your mouth with a sleeve, inhaling air that somehow smells clearer after the concoction. One digger swears wormwood kills plague vapors. Another snorts, says it just kills memories. Either way, you drink when offered. Refusing feels like inviting misfortune. Tools break. Handles split, iron heads warp. The city blacksmith hammers replacements, but he's overworked forging nails for hastily boarded windows. So you improvise. Lash the head to the shaft with leather strips. Wrap the grip in cloth to keep splinters from burrowing under fingernails already black with grime. Creativity born of desperation. Call it medieval engineering. Rain is your sworn enemy. Soft earth turns grave walls to sludge. Bodies slide, half burying themselves sideways like crooked books on a shelf. You shovel frantic, fearing collapse that traps air pockets and gases. Result, pit burps that send fetid sprays upward. Stand too close, you taste death. On the worst nights, rainwater pools atop the corpses, reflecting lightning in a macabre mirror. Then you pray for hard frost again. Speaking of weather, winter offers a twisted gift. Fewer rats, slower decay. But cold kills manpower, not plague. Fingers stiffen till you can't grip a shovel. You stuff straw inside gloves, blow on hands, curse frostbite. One digger wraps rags around both ears only to find them blackened 2 days later, tissue dead from cold. He cuts them off himself with a belt knife, hissing through teeth. Less to hear the moans, he jokes weakly, but blood spots soak the rag and silence swallows the pit. No one laughs. Companions drop away, replaced by newcomers. You measure time by faces. The miller's son lasted 3 weeks, the shoemaker's widow 5 days, the traveling juggler barely an hour before he vomited and fled. Turnover so high, the pit becomes an apprenticeship in despair. You become senior staff by sheer attrition, passing grim tips. Tie rope around your waist, double glove if you can. Never wipe sweat with the same hand that lifts bodies. They nod, wide-eyed. Some remember, many don't, yet small victories glow like coals in ash. A mass burial completed before sunrise. A cart that arrives half empty because a patient recovered. A miracle whispered down the line. You allow yourself a cracked grin, a fist bump of dirt-blackened knuckles. Hope is fragile, but you guard it like embers against wind. Let's not ignore the living's revulsion. Market vendors refuse service, fearing your presence taints produce. One baker leaves bread on a bench. You leave coins twice the price, still feel theft's sting because dignity costs more than silver. Sometimes a kind soul, usually too poor to fear reputation, presses a boiled egg into your palm with a nod. In that moment, humanity flickers. You tuck the egg safe, eat it later, shell crunching like victory between teeth. Night soundtrack is bizarre. Frogs croak, wind rattles shutters, somewhere a lute strums, someone drunk or defiant, singing against catastrophe. Over everything, that church bell tolls and tolls, until you can't tell if it's real or echoing inside your skull. Once, the bell rope snaps. Silence floods the pit, thick as pitch. No one speaks for a full minute, spooked by sudden quiet. Then you, of all people, hum a tavern ditty, something about ale and apples to break the spell. Others join ragged chorus, shovel beats for percussion. The work resumes, grim but alive. Occasionally, officials inspect. They arrive in fur-trimmed cloaks, masks stuffed with herbs, frowning at disorder. They bark orders, stack neater, lime faster. Easy to command from clean boots. You bow just enough, then side-eye your comrades. After the officials leave, you mutter imitations, mock pompous voices, until laughter bubbles up, releasing tension like steam. Rebellion by ridicule, the only kind safe for your station. Supernatural dread seeps in through any crack. You hear of dancers in a neighboring town who can't stop gyrating. Some blame cursed air, others demonic fiddlers. You scoff, but when your foot starts twitching after too many hours tiptoeing on corpse-slick boards, you second guess. Is it fatigue or foul enchantment? You soak feet in vinegar that night, just in case. Medieval solutions, equal parts science, superstition, and desperation. Talk of cures circulates like gossip. A foreign physician claims a paste of crushed emeralds applied to buboes works wonders, if you can afford emeralds. Some alchemists recommend mercury vapor. They end up as poisoned as patients. You overhear a rumor of a village untouched because they light bonfires nightly, smoke thick as tar. The driver snorts. They're fumigating rats, not souls. You note it anyway, file under maybe. Death doesn't discriminate, but people do. Rich burials happen in consecrated ground. Even during plague, some families bribe for private plots. You escort one such body, velvet robes, embroidered gloves. The priest recites full rites while you hold the lantern. Later, you return to the public pit, shovel in hand, the irony heavy as dirt. That night, you dream of two graves merging underground, skeletons shaking hands, laughing at the living's foolish distinctions. Let's zoom out. Historians tally up death tolls, print charts. But numbers can't show the weight of a shovel, the thump of soil, the rasp of breath under a vinegar cloth that stiffens with frost. They don't capture how your sense of smell fractures. Roses remind you of rotting fat, rain reminds you of leaking coffins. They certainly don't note the cracked lullabies diggers hum to lull themselves into dreamless sleep. Speaking of sleep, dawn approaches. Your shift ends, but one final task: cleansing ritual. Water, ash, more vinegar. Some sprinkle salt on boots, a folk ward. You hang the shovel on a peg, whisper, "Don't go walking off." A joke, mostly. Tools vanish, sometimes stolen for firewood. You trudge home, passing doors marked with red crosses. Your reflection in puddles startles you. Hollow cheeks, eyes ringed dark. You wonder how long until you join the reflection under the water instead of above. At your cot, you unwrap that saved hard-boiled egg, eat it slowly, savoring mundane flavor amid chaos. You scribble in charcoal on the wall, tally of nights survived. Notches march across plaster, dozens now. Each one a stubborn declaration: I'm still here. Then you lie down, but before sleep claims you, you remember our bargain, to keep digging into this history until the seventh mound is filled. The door creaks wider than any church confession, and the smell punches first. Sweet rot braided with boiling vinegar and rosemary. Copper pans simmer on every hearthstone, thick stews of dried herbs meant to cut the miasma. They don't. They just layer perfume over corruption, like pouring rosewater on a midden heap. Still, citizens cling to ritual. A girl no older than 12 ladles the brew into shallow bowls placed by every threshold. Steam spirals up, finds the beams, condenses, drips back down again, ceilings sweating fear. You and I, lanterns raised, navigate the main ward. Rows of low pallets, each draped with rough wool. In the gloom, you cannot tell who sleeps, who slips. At the far end, a choir of coughs answers the bell clanging from somewhere upstairs. That bell is the plague house heartbeat. A clang for water, 2 for soiled linens, 3 for death. We count out a motley rhythm before anyone bothers writing it down. Mid-hall, Master Ulrich the apothecary adjusts the beak of his leather plague mask. He swears the dried orange peel stuffed inside masks the smell. Truth is, it only sharpens it. Get close and the odor becomes intimate, like opening a cupboard of forgotten fruit. The mask lenses fog with each breath, giving Ulrich's face a ghostly glaze. He lifts a quill, dips into lamp-black and tincture, and tallies bodies on calf-skin parchment. Between strokes he murmurs to himself, perhaps a prayer, perhaps dosage ratios. No one interrupts. Accuracy keeps chaos from detonating. Let's talk supplies. Charcoal is gold, burned in trays to purify air. Vinegar, likewise, is rationed tight. On our first pass tonight, we're to replenish both. You balance a sloshing cask on your shoulder. I lug a bucket of hand-scooped briquettes. The hallway floor creaks like an old captain's deck. We step in unison, calling soft warnings so no one rolls underneath our boots. Overhead, shuttered windows gape like blind eyes. Town council ordered them boarded last week after rumors of night vapors spreading infection. Now moonlight only slithers through finger-width cracks, making jagged prison bars across the straw. Rats patrol these routes with military discipline, their squeaks an unholy counterpoint to moans. We pass Sister Magdalene, face bandaged save for her eyes. She's burned her cheeks with quicklime disinfectant after a pustule ruptured on a patient's chin. Her injury proves dedication. Townsfolk whisper she'll ascend to sainthood if she lives long enough. You notice she ties sprigs of rue and cosmere into her braid, a botanical halo trembling as she walks. She asks us for fresh coals. Her brazier, she says, has grown cold, and the vapors feel thicker today. We tip half our bucket into her iron pan. The coals hiss in bruised gratitude. Sister Magdalene blesses us and moves on. The coals will be ash by sunrise, but hope burns a bit longer. Rethink plague houses as experiments in social hierarchy. At the back chamber, fenced by a hanging linen sheet, lie city solicitors and aldermen, pale faces on feather pillows ringed by silver candlesticks. A paid physician stands by, lancing swellings and whispering Latin comforts. 2 rooms away, commoners share pallets, limbs tangled. Their caretaker is old Bram, once a barber now downgraded to bleeder. He wields a razor that lost half its edge, decapitating chickens for broth. Still, the poor thank him with cracked lips. Charity is a miracle, even dull steel can conjure. Shift change. We're summoned upstairs. A three-clang bell. Death. At the stairwell we meet the removal crew. 4 rookies wearing vinegar-soaked cloths over mouths, eyes wide as saucers. They've arrived late, muscles fresh. We show them how to knot ropes around remains to minimize touching. They nod, gutsy but green. Then we watch them descend, dragging bundles wrapped in shrouds dark with leakage. On their return, their faces have aged a decade, lines etched by lantern glow. Welcome to the fraternity. Back to workrooms where Ulrich distills 4 thieves' vinegar. Legend claims a gang looted plague houses unharmed after smearing this brew. Rosemary, sage, lavender, cloves, wormwood, camphor, and enough garlic to shame an entire monastery's kitchen. Ulrich bottles it in green glass, corks with beeswax. He hands us 2 flasks without words. We rub it on wrists, temples, breathing the sting. The bite wakes you like iced wine, momentary illusion of invincibility. Now for laundry detail, the least glamorous yet most vital. Soiled linens harbor death more clingy than any jealous lover. A copper cauldron big as a brewer's tun bubbles over a brick kiln. We stoke it with broken chair legs, tax ledgers, anything combustible. Water sizzles as we dump armloads of blood-stained sheets. Lye soap, chunky and harsh, melts into gray froth. Stirring paddle in hand, you look like a chef of nightmares. Steam clouds the rafters until droplets cascade back, refreshing the stink of cooked cloth and seared contagion. No illusions, some germs survive, but ritual counts, movement, heat, the idea of fighting back. Mid-scrub, a messenger bursts in, breathless. Another house flagged, he pants. The street watchers spotted a family painting white crosses on shutters, sign of self-imposed quarantine. Our orders: deliver food, bar doors, set watch. You and I volunteer, anything to escape the stew fumes. We shoulder baskets of hardtack, dried peas, jugs of river water tinctured with pennyroyal. Outside, night drizzle needles our faces. Streets glow with sporadic torchlight. Dogs whine behind fences. At the flagged house, anxious eyes peer from loft slats. Father's voice trembles gratitude through planks. He won't risk opening. We slide the basket beneath the latch, nail boards across lower window frames. Above, the family recites prayers in unison, muffled but melodic, an aria of dread. As we leave, we mark tally chalk on the door. 4 souls inside, unknown outcome. Statistic now logged in city memory. Back toward Plague House, we detour past the bone pit for a check. Rain has turned clay walls slick. The mound appears to breathe under its soaking blanket. We prod bracing stakes, ensure no collapse threatens adjacent cottages. The stench here is elemental, older than language. We work quickly. Returning, we glimpse a flicker from the apothecary window. Ulrich distilling by moon. Inside, glass stills clink, spirits condense in coils, droplets ping tin pans. Beside him, a ledger lists ingredients low. Mandrake, angelica, hyssop. Supply lines falter. Merchants fear contagion, raise prices. Ulrich speaks without looking up. If trade stops, prayer is our last remedy. You mumble amen. You and I finally steal a moment in the back courtyard, sharing crumbly oatcake rations. Moonlight slices between clouds, silvering puddles. You ask what I fear most. Not the plague, I answer, but being forgotten, shoveled into statistics with no story. You nod, silence heavy. We log bodies till rooster crow. Final count tonight, 37. Fewer than yesterday, reason to exhale, though dawn's breeze may carry new moans. Before parting, we sanitize blades, press our palms to the warm kiln bricks, stealing leftover heat for cold bones. We trade weak jokes, promise to meet by sundown. Don't die, I'd hate to tally you. Gallows humor, perhaps, but it stitches sanity. On your way home, city dawn looks bruised. Sun crawls behind ash haze, staining sky sickly orange. You pass an alley where street urchins chalk murals, angels fencing rats with pitchforks, child logic for the chaos. You nearly smile. Reaching your door, you strip out her garments, douse them in vinegar barrel. Inside, a single candle waits. You blow it out, crawl under blankets that still smell of soap lye, and scratch today's notch on the bedpost. 3. Needles, you ask? Yes, needles. Not arrows, not swords, just bone-slender slivers of iron we pray won't snap mid-stitch. Out back, in a shed the size of a pigsty, 6 volunteers crouch beneath a swaying oil lamp, patching sheets torn by thrashing victims. Threads spool from fingers raw and trembling. Any break larger than a thumb could leak contagion-laden pus onto the next poor soul. So we mend, murmur psalms, and keep our stitches small. Nobody calls it heroic. Sewing is what the living do to keep pretending cloth still matters. We trade gossip while we work, rumors the only payment left. Someone swears a barge arrived at the quay, carrying barrels of Jenny's lemons, the juice said to clean the blood. Someone else counters, the lemons spoiled, skins black with rot, sailors coughing blood before the anchor touched mud. I mention a friar who claims visions of smoky angels hovering over plague houses. Guardian or executioner, impossible to know. The shed grows colder, even chickens hush. Mid-story, a knock rattles the thin plank door. It's Jacob the tanner, wrists wrapped in fresh bandages. He cradles a bundle of hides, soft goat leather, pale as mourning doves. Mask liners, he explains, voice hoarse. The apothecary demanded new stock because the last batch turned brittle after weeks of vinegar vapors. Without supple leather, the mask beaks crack, and then every breath is borrowed. We clear a table, spread the hides, trim oval pieces. The smell, tannin, sweat, hint of goat fat. Sits heavy, but we inhale anyway. It's a change from rosemary rot inside the ward. Once stitching ends, we must deliver linen to the bathhouse. No, not for comfort. Baths here burn rather than soothe. A new cure from distant Prague dictates steaming a patient until skin flushes crimson, then plunging him into cold spring water. Shock the humors, chase the pestilence out. We've seen 2 survive this trial, 5 perish. Arithmetic favors death, but desperation warps the odds. We heft baskets of scalding sheets, cross the courtyard under drizzle that now feels warm by comparison. Inside the bathhouse, kettles roar, brick floors sweat, and a constant hiss sings from hot stones. One patient shivers violently while an orderly rubs salt into his armpits. Salt is thought to draw out ill spirits. The man's teeth chatter a lullaby. We swap his drenched sheet for a new one, whisper a blessing, and back away before gratitude becomes pleading. While returning, we detour past the kitchen. Briarwood smoke coils from the chimney, good sign. The cook hasn't fled. Inside, cauldrons bubble with thin barley gruel. Meat is fantasy now. Cook Gertrude glances up, flour streak on her brow. No spoilage tonight, she says, proudly lifting a sack of small onions donated by a far-flung farm that still dares commerce. We help peel. Onion skins cling like parchment prayers. Their scent bites eyes but masks worse stenches. Gertrude sprinkles crushed juniper for taste and protection. We ladle bowls for orderlies first. Morale needs feeding before muscles. Out the window, dawn's earliest bruise edges the sky, a smear of gray-purple hinting at sunrise. Our next task, load the lime cart. Every fresh grave requires a thick layer to stifle odor and rumor alike. Lime dust coats everything, hair, lashes, even thoughts. We shovel white powder till coughs bloom in our chests. A raven flutters overhead, lands on the cart rim, cocks its head as if auditing our progress. Superstition says ravens tally souls. We toss a handful of lime its way. It flaps off, unconvinced. Then the bell clanks thrice, another passing. The removal crew shoulders poles. We lift the shrouded form onto the stretcher and make the slow march through alleyways still slick from night rain. Street dogs trail us at distance, hoping for scraps of cloth or bone. We reach the municipal pit, dump lime, slide body in, another lime layer, another shovel dance of dust. One crewman crosses himself, another spits, muttering, "This whole city is a pit now." We trudge back lighter in body, heavier in mind. Before shift ends, Ulrich summons us to the herb loft. Amid hanging bundles of thyme and yarrow, he unveils his newest concoction. Opium, dissolved in red wine, thick as syrup, a sedative for the worst pain. He hands you a vial to administer, only when screams threaten to break thin walls. You tuck it into vest pocket, feeling weight like a promise. Finally, sunrise. Everyone gathers in the courtyard for roll call, those still breathing. We report 3 volunteers down with fever, 2 recovered enough to walk out, their faces lit by cautious hope. The city registrar notes the figures, glances skyward and whispers, "Mercy is arithmetic." No one laughs. We part ways. Your boots squelch through mud toward home. Passing the shuttered windows of the quarantine street you serviced early in the night, you hear faint singing. Lullabies? Hymns? You dare not linger. At your doorstep, you strip gloves and hood, douse them in vinegar barrel, and climb the ladder to your loft. You record today's tally mark, IV, and stare until lines blur. Candle burns low. You think of the onion skins, the lime dust, the raven. You marvel at how a night can feel both endless and brutally brief. The stair feels alive, stone steps slick with perpetual sweat. Iron handrail rust-pocked from centuries of salt breath rising out of the earth. Wind that shouldn't exist down here rises through the well, carrying whistles, sighs, half-formed words. At the landing, an iron gate yawns. We've never seen it open, but tonight 2 militiamen flank it, each wearing fragrant herb garlands like ceremonial chains. One hands us tar-dipped torches. "Stay close to walls," he mutters, eyes rimmed red from nights without sleep. "And if you see a rat bigger than your boot, It belongs to the tunnels now. Don't follow. We press through into darkness, thick as pitch. Behind us the gate slams, bolts thunder home. For an instant even torchlight seems devoured, until flames claw wider, lighting uneven brick arches receding like throat ridges of a leviathan. Water drips everywhere. Channels once meant to drain storm runoff, now sluice with brackish seepage from plague pits above. Ulrich leads, mask lenses glinting. He stops at a niche where a stone plaque hangs askew. Mors vincit omnia. Someone has scratched new text beneath, sed non ante lectio, but not before it is read. Ulrich growls, we've reached the archive crypt, the rumored library of the dying where scribes recorded final confessions so sins could be weighed before burial. Why here? Because parchment doesn't burn underwater, and water is what bursts from walls when coffins stack 6 deep in plague years. Our assignment sounds simple. Salvage quills, inkwells, and any intact ledgers. The city fathers fear looters will sell them as relics. The last breath of a martyr fetches coin. But inside the scriptorium alcove, the air curdles. Shelves once orderly sag under mold-bloom manuscripts. A mountain of broken desks smothers the far exit, and through the wreckage a faint luminescence pulses, phosphorescent fungus feeding on glue. The stench hits even through beak filters, vinegar masking cadaver sweet, overlaid by burning tallow from candles long expired. Brother Cleophas, the frail archivist pressed into our squad, shuffles forward clutching a velvet pouch. He points at a heap of scrolls cocooned in waxcloth. The penitential rolls, he whispers, signed in blood and myrrh. We kneel, knives out, slicing wrappings, uncovering pages surprisingly whole. Names, crimes, final pleas scrawl across margins. One reads, God, forgive the surgeon who bled me to feed the poor. Another, tell my wife the ring is buried beneath the olive tree. Each confession feels like a small, living thing, hearts still beating faintly beneath ink. Cleophas seals them in oilskin tubes. You're about to heft the bundle when the stone floor trembles. Water slaps archways, a roar grows like a furnace flue, and then a wall section splits wide, spewing flood-black runoff. Torches hiss, one sputters out. We retreat, but the surge keeps coming, swirling around calves, carrying bits of bone and rag. Ulrich shouts to higher ground, a staircase where crypt meets catacomb. You sprint, water-clawing knees, scroll bundle hugged to chest. On the stair, dripping, we count heads. One missing, Jacob, the tanner. Torchlight skims water, no shaped surfaces. Ulrich curses, but time is acid here. Linger and everyone dissolves. He forces us upward through a low door, slams it as the torrent batters wood. Breath ragged, we find ourselves inside an old torture chamber, repurposed as ossuary overflow. Chains dangle like wilted vines. Against one wall stands the Iron Maiden legend claims never pierced flesh, but studying the inside door we find brown stains that dispute that tale. Cleophas lowers to knees, muttering prayers. Ulrich inspects instruments, thumbscrews, bone saw, muttering about iron purity. High carbon, he notes, could forge scalpels. You touch a shackled collar, fingertips feeling grooves where decades of victims scored tally marks. 17 notches, then a final gutter slash. You imagine the prisoner carving the last mark mid-throb of agony, determined that someone, someday, would see the sum. Noise interrupts, far end of chamber, a door rattles softly. We freeze. No guard could reach this deep. You raise torch, light skims across mummified figure slumped against hinge. Cloth once crimson, now ferrous black, bones thin as quills. Yet arms twitch, rat nest beneath ribcage, disturbed shell. We exhale, tension splits, but not enough. Ulrich orders quick inventory, then up to surface. Floodwater will find us again. Loading sacks with salvaged ledgers, we climb a spiral stair too narrow for 2 shoulders. Steps are slick and uneven. Every 10th stone sinks underfoot with ominous click. Booby traps? Old castle legends say enemy sappers were lured into these shafts and drowned when cisterns were breached. We tread lightly. At last, a rusted grate opens to basement of plague infirmary. Familiar scent of juniper and lye greets us like sun after eclipse. Sister Magdalene stands arms folded, eyes wide at our mud-filthy state. We unburden scrolls onto a table. She touches one sheet reverently, tracing words of confession as though feeling pulse of ghost. These, she says, will become prayers. We'll read them over the trenches at dusk. No one should go unspoken. Her voice cracks. She turns away, calling novices to fetch towels and vinegar swabs. We hope for rest. Not yet. A messenger rushes in. Fire has broken out at the south ward. Candles toppled near stacked straw pallets. Flames climb rafters. Smoke rolls across courtyard. Wind howls. Sparks threaten the linen sheds. Without pause, we dash back outside, lungs complaining. Buckets line the well. Volunteers form chain. You grab one, scoop cold water that stings cracked skin, heave towards silhouette of blaze. Fire dances across tarred roof, juniper garlands ignite with popgun bursts. Steam blinds us. Ulrich leaps onto rain barrel, hacks flaming garland free. It drops into puddle with hiss. Embers spray your hair. Singed smell joins plague potpourri already clinging to tunic. For 1 hour we wrestle the blaze until only charred beams smoke like spent torches. Casualty count. 3 patients overcome by fumes before being dragged out. 1 orderly's hand seared. Sister Magdalene pronounces the south wing unsalvageable. She'll move survivors to nave of abandoned church across lane. Inevitable. Sacred spaces become infirmaries sooner or later. She asks you to help transport bed frames at dawn. But dawn is nearly here. We're ordered to rest, else collapse mid-carry. In the dormitory loft, candles stubbed to nubs. You slump onto pallets still wet from last shift. Wooden rafters creak overhead, dripping latrine water from cracked conduit. Yet for the first time in nights you sense a hush, a pause between calamities. Before sleep clamps eyes, you scribble a quick note for our midnight fellowship. Ask them, if you discovered an anonymous confession scrawled in final hour, would you burn it to protect privacy or read it aloud so memory survives? Invite them to debate in comments, because nothing sharpens wisdom like a crowd whispering under flickering lamps. The hallway stinks of wet ash and camphor. Sister Magdalene meets us with news. A cart from the northern abbey just rattled and carrying barley loaves, lamp oil, and, most coveted, 10 flasks of distilled aqua vitae. The catch? The driver collapsed at the gate, babbling that something wearing a face of candles was following him. We're to unload the wagon, examine cargo for tampering, then escort the sisters, returning the empty cart. Simple, except rumors say the road north passes the drowned gallows field, where corpses still sway above floodwater. Ulrich distributes iron-spiked staves, rat catchers modified for 2-legged threats. We trudge out, morning fog thick enough to shave. The wagon's axles scream under weight of cask and sack. Within minutes, mud is up to our ankles. Fields on either side resemble gray seas. A lone scarecrow leans, hat missing, arms bound as if praying. Cleophas murmurs a psalm, voice warbling. No one mocks him. Superstition rides every shoulder. Halfway to the abbey, road dips beneath skeletal elms. Here the air changes, metallic and cold like coin pressed to tongue. We spot them. 4 gibbets pitched in still water, iron cages hanging bodies long rotted. But something new glints. Fresh wax dripped across skulls, taper stubs like malformed horns. The driver's terror makes sense. Some pilgrim of dread turned corpses into candelabra. Ulrich orders inspection. You wade thigh-deep, cold slicing flesh. Inside one cage, the skeleton's ribcage holds a wooden box secured with tar string. Against every instinct, you slice the cord. Inside, a parchment roll bound in red thread, and a sprig of rue, herb of absolution. Cleophas reads aloud, "Let light cling to the lost, lest night claim the living." A vigil offering, not a curse. We debate taking it. Cleophas insists spirits require their tokens. Ulrich scoffs but lets him restore the box. Back on dry ground, the sisters whisper thanks. We press on. Soon stone walls of the abbey crest the haze, spires catching pale sun. Bells peal welcome and warning. At the gate, Prior Matthias greets us, beard frosted white, although air is mild. He gazes past us toward Gallows Field. Candles again, he sighs. 3rd time this fortnight. Whoever tends those bones does so with devotion. Inside, cloisters buzz. Novices grind herbs, coopers patch barrels, preparing for siege that never ends. Matthias brings us to the scriptorium, walls painted with star maps. He presents our payment. Vellum sheets, ink cake, 2 goose quills, precious for scribes documenting last confessions. But his real plea, take Brother Silas back with us. Silas is the abbey astronomer. He claims the comet burning slow across the western sky portends another plague wave, and insists on charting it from the city's highest tower. Matthias prefers Silas gone rather than inciting panic. Silas appears, eyes ringed dark as eclipse, clutching a tube stuffed with star charts. He mutters equations, warns of fire rain. Ulrich rolls eyes but agrees, so long as Silas carries his own pack. We depart at dusk. Haze thickens into drizzle, smearing landscape. Silas stops repeatedly, aligning brass quadrant, mumbling about perihelion. Each pause lets cold chew deeper. When we reach Gallows Field again, daylight is gone. Candle stubs atop skulls now glow, relit by unseen hand. Fog warps light, making dead seem to sway alive. Cleophas grips crucifix. Ulrich taps stave against boot. Without warning, Silas steps into water toward cages, notebook open. He claims angle of candlelight matches comet tail, a sign of convergence. Ulrich curses and sloshes after him. Suddenly water erupts. Huge dog? No, a boar carcass bloated, set adrift, striking Silas's knees. He tumbles, quadrant sinking. In scramble we all plunge waist deep, hauling him out. Lantern oil drenches water, slick rainbow on surface. Back on road, Silas shivers, teeth clacking code. But he saved notebook, pressed to chest. He whispers thanks, then confides, someone tends those lights nightly, likely fever survivors honoring kin. His tone carries awe, not fear. We march faster. Night creatures call. When city walls loom, watch fires flicker along parapets. Guards wave us through, but eye Silas's dripping cloak suspiciously. Inside, alleys churn with refugees, rumors, merchants hawking deathless herbs. Sister Magdalene rushes forth. South Infirmary rebuilt from salvaged beams, but plague count climbs again. She begs our aid, preparing mass grave at Potter's Field. Rest postponed. We follow lanterns to field where earth pulses with stench. Gravediggers swing mattocks, silhouettes against funeral pyres. Between trenches stand 3 wooden biers holding bodies wrapped in linen, laced with pine resin. Magdalene asks Cleophas to read confessions over each before lowering. He opens oilskin tube, scrolls we salvaged. Voices of unknown dead echo across mire as he recites lines of guilt, love, regret. Digging halts, even gravediggers bow heads. During final reading, Silas sets quadrant atop mound, adjusting scope toward comet now blazing amber. He sketches quickly, candle tucked behind ear. When Cleophas intones amen, a wind gust snuffs torches. Darkness collapses, save comet shedding pale shards. In hush, Silas whispers, tail lengthened, sign of dust veil, sky will dim, crops fail. Ulrich snaps that doom talk helps no one, but Silas meets his glare. Better warned than buried ignorant. We finish burial by moonrise. Exhaustion grips, but another task arrives. City Council demands nightly perimeter sweep. Rats growing bold, gnawing grain stores. We're to escort Ratcatcher Barthold and his ferrets through granaries. Sleep? Myth. Barthold greets with grin, missing 3 teeth. Introduces ferrets, pox, and mercy. Inside first granary sacks tower like sandstone cliffs. Ferrets slink into gaps, squeaks erupt, chaos of claws, then silence. Barthold extracts rats big as kittens, tails scalpeled by disease. He insists on boiling heads for bounty proof. Mid-patrol we find hole torn through outer wall. Gnawed plank edges, but also chisel marks. Human hand widening breach. Ulrich guesses thieves stealing grain but leaving rat's path. We secure plank with iron latch, marked door for repairs. Finally shift ends. Dawn threatens faint blue edge. Back at infirmary loft, pallets reek faintly less. Someone aired straw. We collapse, but sleep again shallow. Nightmares of candle-crowned skulls and comet sparks raining like cinders on coffin lids. Before lids close, we scribble tonight's call to arms. Ask listeners whether they dare relight candles for unknown dead if curses might follow. Suggest they share protective charms. Salt in shoe, bronze coin under tongue. Engagement, after all, keeps algorithmic gibbets from swallowing our tiny channel whole. The courtyard is a watercolor of grief. Sisters in ash-stained habits unload dying beggars from pushcarts. A piper with split lips trades dirges for bread, and overhead that comet still burns, its tail long enough to slice the horizon. Brother Silas scribbles furiously beside the well, shivering despite borrowed wool. He beckons you. Dust veil spreads faster than I thought, he whispers, parchment crackling. By next full moon the air will taste of iron. You nod, because what else does one do when prophecy becomes weather? Ulrich stomps over, breastplate spattered, eyes bloodshot. Change of orders, he growls. City Council wants a lantern vigil tonight. We march the main thoroughfare from Southern Gate to River Docks, lighting braziers to rekindle hope. Meanwhile, pickpockets will work crowds and rat nests will feast. Sister Magdalene appears behind him, cheeks wine-burned. And, she adds softly, we're nearly out of willow bark tincture. Unless someone crosses the marsh to gather more, fever wards will go dry. 2 impossible tasks, hope parade or deathweed harvest. Leadership by ultimatum. You volunteer for the marsh. Ulrich exhales relief. He hates wetlands and hands you a squad. Cleophas the curate, Silas, insisting the comet's reflection on water may reveal data. Barthold the rat catcher with ferrets, pox, and mercy, and a new recruit. Rena, a baker's widow who yesterday shaped loaves from sawdust and barley husk, yet somehow sings lullabies to orphans at night. She carries a pruning knife and a smile that refuses to die. Just outside the northern postern, the city's defenses unravel into mist-drowned reeds. Pathways twist like intestines. One wrong step drops you into peat that drinks men whole. Cleophas marks our passage with chalk crosses on stones. Silas pauses whenever puddles mirror the comet, jotting angles, muttering about solar minima. Barthold releases Pox to scout. The ferret darts ahead, tail flagging triumph. An hour in, the wind shifts, marsh brine replaced by something rank and sweet like rotting fruit. We find source, a capsized skiff, half submerged, cargo crates burst open. Inside, wax figures of saints, pilgrim souvenirs, now softening into grotesque blobs. Among them, a wooden chest sealed with pitch. Rena's knife pre's lid, bundles of willow bark, exactly what we need. Providence or trap, no time to debate. We shoulder bundles. Silas pockets a wax fragment shaped like a kneeling woman. Iconography under duress, he notes. Fog thickens, distance becomes rumor. Suddenly Pox screams. Ferrets rarely scream. We rush. The creature hangs from a snare strung between reeds, wire-cutting flesh. Barthold frees her, eyes wet, but Pox is dying. Cleophas offers last right to a ferret, odd moment of tenderness. Mercy sniffs the air, then bolts deeper marshward. Barthold gives chase, we follow, shouting. We emerge into a clearing, ground unnaturally firm. Central stands a rough-hewn hut roofed with sailcloth. From its door, candlelight spills. Mercy paws outside, whining. Ulrich would advise retreat, but Ulrich isn't here. You push door. Inside, warmth, charcoal brazier, walls lined with rush mats, jars of herbs, bundles of beeswax candles. And at the table, a woman maybe 60, skin river-wrinkled, hair braided with crow feathers. She turns, unsurprised. I've been expecting Comet Chaser, she says. Name's Fiala, last keeper of the marsh leech pits, provider of wax for the skull candles. Yes, she lights them, offers for lost souls, purchases a night's peace. She notes our willow bark. Payment for my candles. She smiles. We realize cargo we took was hers. Standoff ripens. Silas breaks tension, presenting wax saint. Your work, he asks. Fiala laughs. Pilgrim trinkets. Melt easy, shape easy. She studies his charts, nods slow. Tail this long when I was a child. Winter that followed was teeth of iron. Silas glows. Confirmation of his data. Bargain strikes. We keep half willow bark, she keeps half, and we ferry her latest candle batch to the city for tonight's vigil. Mutual survival stitched from grief. Evening presses. Hut fades behind. Lanterns bob through fog like timid stars. Marsh seems less sinister now. Maybe understanding rewrites landscapes. Near city wall, we meet Ulrich's patrol lighting braziers. He scowls at cargo but says nothing. Action over argument. Candles are placed atop each brazier. Skull wax for warding, according to Fiala. Crowds gather, hypnotized by dance of gold flames against plague gloom. As procession nears river docks, bells ring alarm. Warehouse fire. Sparks tower, embers riding wind toward rooftops. Ulrich barks orders, bucket chain forms. We race, but barrels are empty. River tide low, wells dry. Rena shouts, points to floating timber jam downstream, charred planks soaked in pitch. Fire started outside, sabotage. Thieves again? Or fearmongers hoping to breach order? Amid chaos, Silas climbs a hoist boom for vantage. He sees Comet Tail now arcs directly above city, luminous trail mirrored in river. Dust veiling now, he cries. Tiny ash flakes drift from sky, glowing faintly. Not snow, not ember, celestial dust. It lands on flames, dampening spread, miracle disguise. Fire dies quicker than expected. People look heavenward, mouths open, ash settling on tongues like sacrament. In quiet afterblaze, Sister Magdalene organizes candlelit requiem along river. Candles from Fiala float on planks, each carrying name of plague dead. Rena sings lullaby, voice weaving with lapping water. Even Ulrich softens, helmet under arm. Then the driver who once saw candle skulls appears, pale, pointing across water. On far bank rows of candles now burn on newly erected gibbets, 100 maybe. Fiala's work multiplied. She must have other helpers, or grief spreads like mold. Cleophas starts prayer, but Silas interrupts. Not mourning, he whispers, eyes wide. Signal. He unfolds star chart. Positions of gibbets align with constellation Orion reflected in Comet Tail. A map? To what? Before answer a roar, crowd on docks surges as boats approach. Fugitives from northern villages following candle lights. They carry children, sacks of grain fungus, and stories of fields blackened by frost in midsummer. Our city, already choking, must absorb more souls. Council elders arrive, arguing whether to seal gates. Ulrich stands between refugees and soldiers, stave resting but ready. Candles flicker, ash drifts, comet blazes, a tableau of impossible choices. You step forward, voice somehow strong. We cannot burn the bridge while praying for salvation. Silence, then murmurs. Sister Magdalene speaks of triage, of turning barrel coopers into shelter builders. Cleophas offers Abbey crypts for quarantine. Barthold volunteers rat patrol among newcomers' camps. Even Ulrich nods, battle lines redrawn against colder enemy. Council, cornered by courage, yields. Gates remain open. Refugees file in, eyes hollow yet hopeful. Among them, Fiala appears, balancing hive basket of fresh wax. She nods to you, unseen agreement kept. That night, comet dust settles heavy, torches burn pale blue, infirmary fills beyond bursting. Rena bakes bark-infused bread to stretch supplies. Cleophas hears confessions until voice cracks. Barthold trains refugees to snare rats for stew. Silas climbs cathedral scaffold hourly, plotting tail length. Ulrich posts double watches but finds time to help Rena knead dough. You write these events for records no one may read, ink mixed with comet ash. Near midnight, Fiala asks you to accompany her to Gallows Field one last time. Candles need tending. You go alone, save her lantern. Marsh quieter, water mirror still. At cages, she removes melted stubs, replaces with fresh. She hums hymn older than monastery. When finished, she says, "Candles show path home to those who lost the way. Tonight, city followed." She presses vial of honeyed wax into your hand. Burn this when comet fades. Return journey silent, world hushed like held breath. Infirmary yawns open warm. You stash vial in pillow straw. Finally collapse, sleep creeping like kind thief. And dream, comet tail coils, becomes ladder, skull candles transform to sky lanterns. Plague rats don wings and fly away. City streets bloom with willow bark trees. And a voice, your voice, tells her still awake. We survived this night together. You wake at dawn, ash gone, sky bruised pink. Bells ring 3 long tolls, sign of small mercy, no deaths during dark hours. You gather journal, address invisible audience. If this story kept you company, if it sparked ember of courage, share it forward. Subscribe so next vigil finds you among friends, and tap that bell, our modern braziers, so algorithms don't snuff our flame. Until the next tale, keep a candle handy, keep a chart of stars close, and when darkness thickens, remember, even skulls can be lanterns, even ashes can be ink, and even strangers can hold the line. With that parting bow, lantern